These are your second set of notes for this week. Notes number 21. These are actually continuing in the same section as we had notes earlier at 7-3, but we're doing something a little different. So it's starting on page 441 in the book. We're doing inverses of trigonometry. Our essential question is, how can I find angle measures of right triangles using trigonometry? So the difference for today is that we are finding angle measures, whereas earlier in the week we were just finding unknown side lengths. So what you'll see today is that the angle measure is not given. It would be a variable or like an unknown. So we should have this written down already and the warm-up should be done. So let's go ahead and get started with the notes. Okay, go ahead and copy this down. Pause if you need to. So it says, if you know the sine, cosine, or tangent ratio for an angle, you can use an inverse to find the measure of the angle. So if you know the ratio, like you know one number over the other number, like if you actually know the values for one angle, then you can use an inverse operation, and it's in the calculator. We would use these buttons in the calculator, and then we can actually find the measure of the angle. So that's what we're going to be doing just in a few examples for today. So if you know the sine, cosine, or tangent ratio, you can use an inverse. The inverse is to the -1 power, so sine to the -1, cosine to the -1, or tangent to the -1. And that's when we are finding the measure of an angle. And just like I told you guys on the first set of notes, on notes 21 or 20, this is a little confusing. It takes a lot of practice to really understand it. So just do the best you can to keep up and do the Math Excel homework for sure. If you don't understand it, then make sure you're clicking View an Example. And I'll do my best to explain it, and you guys ask questions if you have any during class. Okay, so let me move this just a little bit. Pause if you need to. If I'm going ahead and you're still writing, I would definitely recommend pausing it. Okay. So we are finding the value of x, and each time it is going to be angle measure. So it's going to be however many degrees. So I can see that this is a right triangle. It has a right angle. Across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse isn't given. So I would circle the angle that I'm trying to find, and I would identify the other side lengths as O and A. So O is opposite, A is adjacent. I am given an O and an A. So what we need to remember is SOH, CA, TOA. And based on that, I can figure out which trig ratio to use if I use sine, cosine, or tangent. So I only have the O and the A. There is no H. So looking over here, if I only have an O and an A, that would be TOA. It would be tangent for this one. So then I'm going to write tan x equals, it's going to be O over A, opposite over adjacent. So this is very similar right now to what we've done already. This isn't different yet. So O over A, O is 100, A is 41. Okay, so what I need to do now is I'm going to rewrite this. So you set this up like how we normally would from what we learned on notes 20. Now I'm going to do the inverse operation. So I'm just going to draw an arrow just to show you guys. Now it's going to be a little different. This is what's new. X equals tan to the -1, and then just copy that same ratio, 100 over 41. So just look and see how I went from this one to this. The x is the angle, so now I'm going to find the angle. So whatever the variable is here, it could be a y or an a, or, whatever letter. I'm going to solve for that by taking the inverse, tan to the -1. It's really important that you guys realize when you're finding an angle, you press the inverse button. Depending on what calculator you use, it's all different. So on my phone, this does nothing for me. I have to turn it sideways. Oops. And what I had like on notes 20, I was showing you guys sine, cosine, and tangent, but I have this button I can push to show more, more different features. We'll be using the sine to the -1, cosine to the -1, and tangent to the -1. Those are all the inverse operations of sine, cosine, and tangent. So if you're using the Chromebook or phone or an actual calculator, this button is there. It should be there for all of them. You might just have to figure out how to get it, okay? So anyways, to solve it, this is all I have to do. I just have to do my tan to the -1 button and then 100 over 41. And then I get that. I am pretty sure in MathXL it tells us to round to the nearest degree. So round to the nearest whole number. So instead of 67.7, I want to round up to 68. And I would say x is approximately equal to 68 degrees. So again, round to the nearest whole number, the nearest whole degree, which would be 67.7. So round it up because it's a 0.7. If it's 5 or above, you round up. Okay. All right, and then real quick, I was just I'm wanting to show you, I do have an app for a calculator on my phone. Let me clear it. Well, okay. Anyways, it looks like this. It's a Desmos scientific calculator. So if you don't like the calculator you have, there's always apps you could download, and then you just have to search to find your sine, cosine, tangent, and then every calculator is different. You got to find the inverse buttons also. So I found that you press the FUNC for function, and you can get sine, cosine, tangent, then the inverse ones. So I could press the inverse of tangent, and then I could do 100 divided by 41, and I still get the same answer. So 67.7, which rounds up to 68 degrees. So use whatever kind of calculator you can, just be comfortable using it and get used to it. So we'll do a few more examples and hopefully you'll get the hang of it. Go ahead and copy this next right triangle. So you'll kind of get the hang of it and see what I'm doing. So I always trace the right angle. I draw an arrow across and I label that as H. Again, I don't have an H this time, no hypotenuse. So from my degrees, from my angle, I can see opposite is 8 and adjacent is 5. So just like I did on the other one, I'm going to try to figure out which one do I use. So, ka, or toa. There is no H, there's no hypotenuse. That was my H, I had to cross it off. So it is going to be the tangent again, inverse of tangent. But when you first set it up, like how I did here, you just write tan x, and then you get your ratio. So tangent is always opposite over adjacent. Opposite from x is 8, and then adjacent was 5. And then go ahead and think about how are you going to go to the next part, like how we did up here. X equals, and then you got to put tan to the -1, inverse tan. Keep the ratio the same. I'm not changing anything. I'm just keeping it 8 over 5. Okay. And then use your calculator, either on the Chromebook or on your phone. Where did mine go? Okay. So I'll just keep showing it on my like standard phone calculator. Oh, okay. So I have to find tan to the -1. For some reason, it looks different right there, but it's still the right one. 8 over 5, so 8 divided by 5. I press equals. I'm still rounding to the nearest whole number, the nearest whole degree. So 57.99 rounds up to 58. X is approximately equal to 58 degrees. So again, what you want to do when you first see your problem, I'll show you on the next one again. I always look at the right angle. I draw an arrow across to the hypotenuse. I circle the angle that's given, like I'm trying to find and solve for it. So it's this one, not that one. So from here, I label my O and my A. So let's go ahead and do that on this one. We have one more after this, so 2 more examples. Oops. So here's my right angle across is my h. So this time we do have a hypotenuse. I circle the angle that we're solving for. There is no opposite, there is an adjacent. Adjacent is next to it. So if I write SOHCAHTOA, this is what's going to tell me if I have sine, cosine, or tangent. I have an A and an H, so it's not sine, maybe cosine, it's not tangent. With the A and the H, it's got to be cosine. So cosine x equals, and again, I'm writing cosine x because it's x degrees. If it was a different letter, I could put a different letter. Adjacent over hypotenuse, so 9 over 13. And then we're going to rewrite it. Think about how we're going to rewrite it, just like how we did on the other one. And again, 9 over 13 because it's adjacent over hypotenuse. X equals cosine to the -1. It's really important you notice it's an inverse. Keep the ratio the same, 9 over 13. And then you're going to use whatever calculator works for you on your phone, Chromebook, or whatever. Whoops. And let's see if I can show everything. So I'm going to press my cosine to the -1 button, and then 9 divided by 13 equals. Round to the nearest whole number, so it's the nearest degree. So 46.1. Don't worry about what's to the right. It's 46.1. The 1 will make it stay the same. So x is approximately 46. 46 degrees. So hopefully this is starting to make sense with repetition. It should be making a little more sense as we go. And here's our last example, and then you will have a MathXL to practice. Okay, so we have a right angle. Across from the right angle is the hypotenuse, which we do have a hypotenuse this time. Circle the angle. We're trying to find angle X right here. Opposite is 27, and there is no adjacent. So you can write A, but there is no adjacent. I'm going to write my SOHCAHTOA again. SOHCAHTOA. Again, it's really important that you spell it right. So what I have is no A. So it must be sine. It can't be cosine or tangent. It's going to be opposite over hypotenuse, so sine. So let's set it up. Sine x. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite is 27. Hypotenuse is 32. Okay, so let's see if you can set it up with me. We're going to get x equals, and then it's just like what we did with cosine inverse and tangent inverse. We would write sine to the -1. Sine inverse, keep the ratio the same, 27 over 32. Keep the fraction the same. And then you just have to put that in your calculator. Okay, so I think I can show the whole thing. Okay, so I put sine to the -1, 27 over 32. 27 divided by 32 equals, rounds to the nearest whole number. Ooh, so this one's a little tricky for rounding. It's 57.53. The 3 doesn't really matter though. All that matters is that 0.5. If it is 5 or bigger, you do round up. So since it's a 5, I have to round up to 58. So x is approximately equal to 58 degrees. Okay, so you do have MathXL homework, and it is very important that you use your notes to help you. And also on MathXL, you can view an example or an explanation and try to get 100%. And on these notes, make sure you get your 3 questions on the left and a 3-sentence summary answering the essential question at the end, or on a sticky note, or on the next page. Just make sure you do get your 3 questions in a summary.